And sometimes we follow the crowd, and that's when you have to reflect and stop, slow down, and just think, what are my values? What am I trying to gain out of this?
Let's start this thing, fool. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Ask the Duo podcast, a podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and just on relationship, this episode that we're going to talk about this week is all around relationship with yourself and having more self-awareness, and just when you're thinking about what we want to do in life and just understanding that a little more.
Yes, and we've got a special guest joining us here today who will be talking just that.
Yeah, she's speaking all the way from Sydney, a primary school teacher turned life coach who has realized over the COVID period that you can actually slow down and also enjoy the things in life as well and achieve the goals that you want to do. And let's welcome Van Ann.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you for joining us. Did you want to give our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your life coach and the courses that you have?
Yeah, so as you said, I've worked really hard my whole life to do something with my life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at all, but I decided to become a primary school teacher. And I really enjoyed that the first couple of years, and I thought, yeah, this is it. I'm going to keep working with kids and make an impact. But I soon realized a couple years working that it wasn't really something that I wanted to continue, because it just didn't seem right. Like something felt off when I was working, and it was just soon after I realized that I wanted to spend time with my family. I wanted to go out with my friends. I wanted to make an impact on the world and do something important. But teaching, it did tick some of those boxes, but I wasn't able to spend a lot of time with my family and friends as much as I wanted to. And other important things to me wasn't really allowed, or I didn't have the opportunity to do that. So that's when I started questioning my decisions and my life, and I was like, what is going on with my life? Am I having an existential crisis right now? And I had to walk this long journey of figuring it out, but I think now I'm on the path to doing what I really want, which is like all those things I've just said, while also having time for myself and having time for what's important to me.
Yeah, and feeling more fulfilled.
Yeah. Like going through that journey, I figured a few things out. And now as a life coach, I want to help other people do the same thing as well. Because a lot of my friends, around this age, right, like late 20s, early 30s, people are so stuck in the mindset of work and so career focused. And they just think that's the way life is supposed to be. And I think I'm just helping people see another way where like they want to do other things, but you don't have to be stuck in the grind, in the hustle, and disregard everything else that you want to do.
Yeah, we love that because we think completely the same as you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, let's start right into that deep question, which is, do we actually know what we want in life?
That's a good question. Look, I feel like from my perspective, like when we're young, from my perspective, it's always the parents and the Asian culture that sort of not directly but indirectly taught me that this is what you had to do in life. And my experiences were, it was, you have to study. Study and having an education is what gave you your future, right? So my mentality as a young adult was, okay, let's just get into uni. Let's just do whatever we need to do. Let's see where that takes us.
Yeah, and it makes sense because when you're young, you're a kid that always looks up to your parents. Your parents is like your idol. They know, they've gone through your life. They know what's good, what's not. So that's the only source of information that you know. And if they're like, yeah, you got to go to uni, and once you go to uni, it allows you to get a really good job, and then you'll be financially stable and all that. So that's like the only source of direction that you've got. So it kind of makes sense that we all kind of lean towards that direction naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I was in the exact same boat. When I was younger, our parents would like write this whole list of things that you need to do, right? Like this
Yeah.
this invisible list. They'll tell you, like, yeah, you have to go to school, education focused. That's the only thing that's gonna ensure a successful career, a successful life. And I never had the chance to really think about what I really wanted to do. So I don't know how you guys felt, but when I was in year like 10, we had this massive book. Like it's like this thick,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was like the job guide.
Yeah.
Nowadays that wouldn't work because so many jobs exist outside of that book. But back in those days, we had this like thick book, and I went through every single page, alphabetical order, like looking through the jobs, and I would fold down the pages for the jobs that I thought were like possible.
Yeah.
And I was like, doctor, nope, too hard. I'm
Yeah.
scared of blood. Like I just
Rip that page out.
Yeah,
See you
nope,
later.
not
Don't
that
need to be in
one. Can't be a lawyer. Nope, I can't even speak. I can't argue. Like I don't like confrontation, that kind of stuff. And all those jobs that they suggested, like, even simple ones that are more doable for me, like accountant, it just sounded not exactly me.
Yeah.
So I went through the whole book like so many times. You wouldn't even know how many times I looked through that book, but nothing really stood out. And I felt like nothing is right for me. Like, what am I going to do in the future? I have to settle with something. I had to decide because if I don't, my life is screwed.
No, we're the same. Well, I was the same. We had something similar. It was more like picking your courses in uni or something like that. It was also like a book or a pamphlet. Had so many things, and I just remember looking at it, and I felt no connection to anything in it. I was like, because I've never really thought about what I wanted in life. Even in high school when I was young, like I was never that kid. I was like, oh, I want to grow up to be like a fireman or whatever it was. Like I didn't have any of that. I was just living my life day by day. And when it came to that point, and I was looking at this thing with all the courses that you go to uni, I just felt like I was looking at blank pages, even though there was just so much information on it. I was just like, yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with me because I do remember in Queensland, we were given a similar book, kind of thick, and basically it's just like in different industries. What do you want to study? Where does that study lead you to what? And I remember just staring at it too, and I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
Because like both of our experiences, it's more like, okay, parents taught you to do this or to go for an education. But it's like, did we ever, like, I don't even think I ever sat there and thought, what do I actually like? And I don't think I ever had the time to, because it's like, as soon as you finish high school, it's like, bang, straight into uni. Like, okay, shit, I got to choose something. So I don't think I really knew the direction.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem that a lot of us face, like especially with my coaching clients that I speak to as well. A lot of them don't know what they want to do. And that's not a bad thing at all. Like
Yeah.
this is our life, our journey to figuring it out. We don't have to figure it out by 30 years old, because a lot of us have this milestone to reach, a career, family, all those things later on, and we have to hit it by a certain age, which is not true at all.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not possible at all. Like if there's other challenges that kind of hit you while you're on this journey, like you gotta change and chop and change and trust
Adapt
the
to it,
journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said about our parents like prescribing this life for us is something that we all resonate with, because our parents just want the best for us, and they want us to, be able to support ourselves, our future families, support our parents when they're older. And so they kind of encourage us to go a certain path, and we just follow it blindly.
Yeah.
Especially from like Asian parents' point of view, like how they immigrated over and they really didn't have anything, and they really do just want the best of us so that we don't have to go through similar struggles that they had to go through.
Yeah. Well, we could agree that it was something that we didn't really know, and we just had to figure out along the way of our life. Is that all of our experiences we could agree on?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. But for at the moment, do you know what you want in life?
To be honest, even still to this day, I'm still like, what the hell? No. Well, to a certain extent, right? It's kind of like okay, you've developed a career pathway and you've spent some time in it. You enjoy it, but you don't love it. But it's something that you do well in it. So it's kind of like, well, how do you know if this is all of it, right? This is all that you're passionate about. This is what you really wanted to keep going with. So I'd say for me, I even still to this day, I don't even know if that's really my full fulfillment.
Yeah, I also agree. And like similar to what you were saying, Van, is that everyone thinks like when you're thinking or being asked, do we know what we want in life? The first thing they think about is careers. But what I was saying to Sam yesterday when we were discussing this is that it actually doesn't have to be careers. And that's something that I figured out over time is like what I truly want in life is just to be happy. And whatever brings me there and brings me peace, like I'm all for embarking that journey. And it doesn't matter if it's like finding a really good job that I really love, or if it's something, you know, like that I'm doing or hobby that I'm doing that I get to do week to week, day to day. Whatever it is, as long as I'm happy, that's what I want in life.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that I was thinking about as well, about how I initially thought of career as well. And
Yeah.
that just shows how much achievement and career status and finances, how much that's ingrained in us and in me. And of course, I'm still learning to unlearn this because there's so much more to life, as you've said.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach in my program and my coaching program as well, is that this idea of values-based living instead of goals-based, because goals-based is very like external, very driven by achievement and like ticking things off the list. Whereas if everything is in alignment with your values, then everything would feel right. You would make decisions based on what's important to you, and you'll be able to see that fulfillment, that meaning, and be driven by something outside of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So for you, Van, is there something that you want to reach towards in your life? Like I know the life coaching thing and being able to teach other people and all that. Is that the main driver for you now?
I think in this part of my life right now, I am focused on career, and that's because I've just pivoted away from teaching. Slightly, I'm still kind of in that world, but it is a main focus just because now like the wedding's over, I finally have time to like sit down and just focus
Feel
on that.
relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like we had a holiday, so now I'm like I'm keen to get back into it, which I have been doing for the past like a month or so. It's just rethinking what sort of direction I want to take. And with that, like there are still other parts of my life that I'm working on as well. But the priority for me is a few things, because the main problem I see with a lot of us, and myself included, is that we want to prioritize everything, and that's why we burn out.
Yeah.
And we can only spend like 5 minutes on this thing and then jump on the next and spend 2 minutes on that. And so I'm really focused on my career right now
Yeah.
and my relationships with other people. So career, relationships, which is always going to be at the top of my list. And then right now is also my health. So health in terms of physical, emotional, mental, everything. So those are my 3 areas that I'm really focused on. And that gives me some sense of direction. And it also reflects what's really important to me right now.
Yeah, those are really good priorities, and I think that's really good that you have those because, yeah, same thing. If you spread yourself too thin and you're trying to do everything and anything that's like coming your way, you definitely don't have time for it all. And knowing your priorities and working towards that is better than just trying to do a bit of everything at the same time.
Yeah. So what are you guys feeling about that? Do you have some sense of direction that you're heading towards right now?
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar, like going off the back of just my main purpose is just finding the thing that makes me happy, fulfilled. It's the same thing because a question that we're going to ask is like, do we have to know what we want in life? And it's a bit of that. Like sometimes you don't know, but it's okay that you don't know. But as long as you kind of keep moving forward, keep trying things, and continue to challenge yourself, but it's also challenging yourself with things that you are willing to try for, like not things that you don't want to try. Like say you know, like for example, doing accounting. Like I don't want to do accounting, but if you're gonna try it and see if you like or whatever, like then you're just kind of burning your energy on places where you already know you don't want to head towards. But as long as you are working towards something, for example, at the moment, we were talking about our careers just off the mic, and I am feeling a little lost right now in terms of career like directions, because in design the industry is quite huge, and because I've touched on so many different departments or little segments of design and digital marketing, it's just trying to find that direction. And what I mean by as long as you're continuously to push forward to try for some of the things, so it's just trying out different, like if it's digital marketing or if it's social media or if it's like UX UI design, as long as I'm trying out those things and still trying to self-reflect and see what I like, what I don't like, I think that's a better way to find your purpose than to, do things that you don't like and you already know that and you're just trying to push forward with things and waste your time essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the same thing with me too. It's like I was saying, just with work, it's just you're in that industry now, but it's just like, how do you find more from it where you get more of a fulfillment? And I guess I'm a similar situation as you, Amelia, where it's kind of like, okay, I've done this for a while now. What's the next point? So I'm a person that likes to build stepping stones where it's continuously growing, whether it's in my career or just me myself working on myself as in terms of my individual characteristics. So I think trying to find that purpose, trying to find that goal, but I think it's making sure that I have a goal or a set goal in mind and I'm working towards that. That's what I try to do, even though I don't have a clear direction, if that makes sense.
Or like clear answer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you both mentioned, like just as you're continually dabbling in different things or just experimenting and trying things out, that's the best way to figure it out.
Yeah.
And whatever you're curious about, that's just what you follow, right? You don't have to know the answer right now. And even if you know the answer, it could be for the next like 3 years. And then you're like, okay, this doesn't feel right again. Back to the drawing board and figuring it out. So, Amelia, as you were asking before about, do we have to know? I think, well, I definitely know that we don't have to know at all. It's not necessary. And it's so normal to be unsure about what you're doing because obviously we need the finances. We need to be able to support ourselves. So it's an essential part of our life, but we don't have to place everything in our job. Like it doesn't have to cover all our bases in terms of like good pay and have to be rewarding in every way, or like it doesn't have to do everything for us. But in terms of fulfillment, it's just as long as you're finding any chance to experience different areas of that, whether this is something like in your job, do you want to build relationships with people, or do you want to grow career-wise or in your expertise? So it just depends on what you're really enjoying and what your values are in that job. Just follow what you're curious about.
Yeah. But I think what you mentioned just before was really important, was the fact that it's okay to change what you want in life. It's okay to adapt and, chop and change certain things. Because like you said, life is all about experience, right? Experiences is what really teaches you or, where you need to be or what life can be like. I think a lot of people don't necessarily see that or overlook that. Because even from my experiences, just like, coming from like beforehand, before I started the whole, so I'm in banking and finance industry for the guys that are listening. So before I even did that, I was in the automotive trade. I was a tradie, you know what I mean? And I did other things, like I was in retail before that. And it's just like, you've got to experience those different facets for you to actually understand what that actually is and whether or not you actually enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good example. So I went to uni to study business and majoring in marketing, right? So when I graduated, all my hopes and dreams and purpose in life was to find a marketing job. And the biggest struggle I had coming out of uni was I could not find a job in marketing. And I think the good example is from that is being okay to and be open to try different things as long as you're working towards that the bigger end goal, and it's like either finding something in marketing or something in a similar industry. So I actually landed in a paralegal job, which is not even marketing at all, but it's just as long as you keep moving forward and trying things and trusting the process, I think that's something better than not doing anything. Because I could have sat there and be like, okay, I have no job, like no one wants me, like I have no qualifications, but I had the opportunity to jump into a law firm, start from admin, became a paralegal. And the most surprising thing out of being a paralegal was being all the things I've learned from it is still skills that I can take and use today, because you have to talk to a lot of people. You have to be able, you're essentially like an event coordinator in a way where you have to just grab details, talk to different people, organize a certain event so that you make this thing happen. And these are transferable skills that I still use today. So it's just like a bit of trusting the process as well.
And that's what I've been trying to see life as, which is there are no mistakes, there are only lessons. Because everything that you experience is teaching you something. Whether that's something you don't like or something you do like, you're learning something from all of those experiences. And me, especially going through the pivot in my career, starting a few years ago, I was terrified. I was like, what am I going to do? I just felt so conflicted. Like I didn't want to go to work, but then I didn't know what else to do. And so I stayed in their job. I stayed in my teaching job because I was like, this is safe. I know what to expect. I'm still getting paid.
Yeah.
And I kind of like spent my time outside of teaching hours going down a rabbit hole basically about life coaching. And it's led me here. So if I found that it wasn't something that I wanted to pursue, then I would have just gone back to teaching.
What was the turning point for you when you were doing a bit of the both and then you actually realized or had that realization that you could actually do life coaching like full time or do that as a thing that you love? Was there like a turning point moment when you're like, maybe this actually works?
I don't think there was one particular moment. I'm a very, if you're thinking between like a dreamer and a realist, I'm more on the realist side.
Yeah.
So I was like planning out, how is this going to look? Am I able to support myself, or is Raymond able to support me? And it was like a slow transition. So I started off like years ago, continually just teaching full time. And then I slowly dabbled into life coaching, and that's when I went to casual. So I worked like 2 days a week. So I was still earning some money and I was still doing life coaching on the side. And then this year I was thinking, okay, how about I take just term 1 off and I'll continue doing casual work. And then I came back from the holiday, from my honeymoon, and I was like really dreading it. I didn't want to go back to work at all. So I spoke to my principal and I was like, you know what? I'm just taking the year off.
How did they take that? Were they like, okay?
I honestly don't know, but I think just in the principal role, you just kind of have to be supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just taking a break. Of course, like so many things happened, like, the honeymoon and the wedding and all that. So I think she understood, but also she's like probably thinking, what is this girl doing?
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes you just got to take that leap and take that risk, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still worried about finances. I just feel like I'm not earning as much as I used to, and I feel like I'm not pulling my weight around here. But I do the cleaning and he earns the money, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because as long as you both have that understanding of like this is like temporary, you're working towards something bigger, or like you're happy with the situation, like he's doing this and you're doing that, and you are both communicating and happy with that, I think that's all that matters.
And what prompted all this was my feelings. I just felt like I had this instinct that teaching was not the path I was going to continue on. And I think I knew that from the very beginning, but I was like, okay, I've only just started. I can't give up now. I spent like 4 years in uni. I can't quit. So I had to find a job, had to work and earn my money back to pay off my uni. But what I wanted to say was that we need to surround ourselves with people who are really supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, like be thoughtful about how you're doing it as well. Not just like jump right into the deep end and quit my job and just sit around like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
But I experimented as well. I tested it out. Like, do people actually want to work with me? Do people trust in me as a life coach? Am I a life coach? I look like a 17-year-old kid, It's really hard to get people to build faith in you when you're just starting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but surrounding yourself with people who are really supportive and not going to be like, hey, look, that's not going to work out. You should try something else. Like, just kill your dreams. Even though I didn't really know if that was going to be a sure thing for me, but it was really helpful that Raymond was like, okay, I can see how much you're working and teaching and how much it's burning you out. And you're really excited when you talk about life coaching.
Yeah. That's
So
really good.
maybe try that out and we'll cut back on our expenses or whatever so that you can do that and see where it goes.
That's really nice.
Yeah, that's good.
So what prompted you to choose primary school teaching as a course or career?
So going back to that thick book, right? The job
Yeah.
guide. I narrowed it down to probably just like a handful of jobs. And I was like, teaching. Yeah, I've always, like in high school, I've done some teaching with like, mentoring younger students, younger peers with their reading. So I was like, hey, I can do that. Doesn't involve any blood, doesn't involve
Hope
doesn't
not.
involve mental breakdowns. So that was the only thing really. And I think when I told my parents, they were like, yeah, that's okay. You get holidays, you get paid holidays, you get to spend time with your kids in the future. So I was like, yeah, okay. If they approve and I'm okay with it, let's do it.
Yeah. Did you have strict parents that were like, you need to get like a good job, or they're usually quite happy with what you choose?
I think they're more on the chill side, but they did have standards. So they wanted something secure, something stable, which teaching and education sector is very stable.
Yeah.
My mum was thinking one day I open up a tutoring center, and I'm like, no way.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Tutoring
Typical
center.
Asian parents,
Yeah.
turning everything into a business. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I chose that just because, for the sake of choosing something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same with me in business. I was just like, the only thing I did good at at high school was just like this thing called, it was called BOM. It's like business. I actually don't even remember what it's called.
Organization management.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like about business, and I was like, oh, it's actually something that does interest me, but like I didn't have enough interest or drive where I'm like, oh yeah, this is my passion. I was just like, oh, I'm doing well. It's all right. And I was like, okay, business, let's just do it. Just started doing my uni degree in it. So
And
yeah.
that's the thing. How could someone expect you to make a big life decision when you're like 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
All I've done was gone to school and go tutoring and go to Vietnamese school and go home. Like, what else did I do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's just like, even for me, it's just when you got into year, I think it's 12, it's just like, bam, here's a book. You guys need to choose your future, decide what you need to do, and then that's it. It's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Get into it. This is literally life. What's it called? When reality hits. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Slapping you in the face. But one question we wanted to ask you as like a life coach is, what if the things that you want to work towards, or the things that you want in life, is actually unachievable?
Oh, that's really hard.
Yeah.
Because I've only ever thought about things that are achievable. And I think that's a safe bet for a lot of us second generation immigrants, is that we only go for what we think will work out. And that's been ingrained into us from our parents as well. It's like,
Yeah.
don't go for that. You'll never make good money from that, or
Yeah.
don't try that because you're gonna waste your time, waste your money, waste your efforts. So I guess some things we have to dream a little and put that pressure on ourselves to want to achieve more, because that bamboo ceiling, that glass ceiling that we place on ourselves, that we limit our own, we limit ourselves and what we believe is possible. So there's a part of me that thinks you can achieve anything if you put your mind and heart into it, right? But at the same time, sometimes you have to lower your expectations a little bit, because
True.
when you place such high expectations of like this career being it, I have to focus everything and it's going to turn out amazing, I'm going to be a billionaire, or like I'm going to be the CEO of something.
Yeah.
We scare ourselves a lot with that, and then all the self-doubt comes in and we're like, nah, we can't do that. Who's going to listen to us? So sometimes you just have to simplify things and just lower your expectations, because, from that mindset of constantly achieving and climbing the ladder, making more money, we have to take it back and be like, okay, is this something that is achievable, but something that's going to be fulfilling at the same time? And another thing I want to say is that sometimes things just aren't meant for you. And as I said before, everything in life is a lesson. So if you try something that seems impossible and you just want to give up, sometimes that's the sign that we need, that it's not going to be for us because this is not the path we're meant to take.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And we believe that hard work pays off, and that's why we burn ourselves out trying to achieve the unachievable sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Anything is achievable, but I would also add, it's like making, like, if you have a really, really big goal that's like, at this point in time, it seems really unachievable, but it's making these little milestones. So they're like little mini goals that works up to the bigger goal. And working toward those little milestones kind of give you, one, a taste of if you do really like this direction, and two, it's actually giving you little checkpoints that you actually get to achieve to, and then you can acknowledge that, like, you've got this, you've gotten this far, you've learned this much. And I think as long as you enjoy those processes and acknowledge that you've come this far, even if you don't make it to the end, or you decide that the end point is not where you want to go, you still acknowledge all the little things that you've learned in between.
Yeah. I love that. Like celebrating the wins and just being able to recognize when you've achieved something, even small.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And I'll bring in one little business acronym that they do. It's called SMART goals. I think you may have heard of that too. So it's just being specific and also making sure that your goals, you can measure your goals and also put in a time frame for it, and being realistic about your goals too. And that comes in when you do those little small milestones, because that's you being more realistic and looking at like a short-term goal that works towards the bigger goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think sometimes even dialing it back to the basics is just stopping, recalibrating, reassessing where you are, because sometimes we're moving at such fast paces trying to figure out what we want in our life. We just need to slow down and just stop. Hey, what are we doing? Okay, let's think about this.
You gotta stop and smell the roses.
Exactly that.
I think that's a really good point you raised, Sam, about how we have to just slow down, because we're constantly moving at super high speed, ticking things off, moving on, not having the time to reflect and think about why we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Like, is it our parents telling us to do it? Is it because we saw our friends like get married and we're like, okay, we have to get married now too? It's just we are so easily influenced and swayed by everyone because we want to grow and we want to do what everyone else is doing. And sometimes we follow the crowd, and that's when you have to reflect and stop, slow down, and just think, what are my values? What am I trying to gain out of this?
Yeah.
Like, is it just for my ego that I want to achieve these things, or is it because it's actually like something really important to me?
Yeah, I think I'm a big culprit of that, especially in the design thing when I first started or early in my design career. The thing is, when you come out of design, everyone is looking to be like a big and well-known designer, or being known for massive artwork or big branding that they've done and it's gone global and everyone knows about it. And when I first started, I was like, oh yeah, I wanna be that. I wanna freelance so I can work for myself and become all these big things. And after a few years, I've realized that, yeah, that is what a lot of people are doing and they can achieve that. And I could potentially achieve that too, but it's not something that I want to do. I want to be able to design for like a particular brand and help them find their purpose, or make them show that their brand perception is about what their business is about. And it's not about, becoming big and a well-known designer that everyone knows and you have millions of followers on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And that took me some time to realize as well.
I'm glad you realized that. It's so easy just to follow everyone else.
Yeah.
And then when you look back, you're like, why did I even do all this?
And it takes time. Like sometimes it could be a goal and it's not wrong to have that goal, but it's just not my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. We often hear like, how do we be true to ourselves in terms of our identity without following, social media, your peers,
social expectations.
Yeah, how do we
cultural expectations?
Yeah. How do we just like stop that, block that, and go, hang on, no, I ain't following y'all. I'm just gonna sort myself out. Like,
you do you.
Yeah, you do you. Like, how do we just be true to ourselves?
Yeah, this is a really big part of letting go of these cultural expectations. And something I thought about when you were asking that is when I tried to fake it till I made it. when I was especially in high school, when you're so like wanting to be liked and wanting to fit in, I had such awkward conversations and I tried to seem like cool and try to be funnier than I was.
And you use those cool terms that high school people use. Like, oh yeah, rad.
What? Rad?
Haven't you? When I was in high school, rad was the word, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, and you just try to be more likable.
Yeah.
And it was really awkward and I still cringe at myself doing those things. But when I tried to be that person, I didn't like myself. But that was also reflecting that I didn't like myself at the time, like who I was naturally. I didn't like that person. And so I tried to be somebody else because they were more popular and they had more friends and all that. So this is something that's really important to me, and I've gone through a journey exploring this as well. And that's why, like, in my courses and in my programs, I talk about this. And there's a whole module that I focus on this in my program, which is a whole month's worth, and it's called Unlearning Your Beliefs. And this is so important. It's not like a overnight fix though. It's something that you have to work on slowly, and as you go through experiences that make you question, like, who should I be in this situation? Should I be myself, or should I try to be somebody else? And it's like removing the clouds, right? Removing the clouds from the sky so that the sun can shine through. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that we aren't really ourselves, but we put on this facade. And it's because of all those external factors from other people telling us, oh, you should do this, or you should be more like them because they're more successful. And all those conversations that we've internalized when we were younger, we are so much more aware of who we are now when we're older, and we take on these opinions, but then when we feel that inner conflict, we're like, wait, that's not what I actually want to do.
Mm.
So that shows how strong your identity is, and being clear on who you are is something that's really hard, but something that I work with my clients on is being strong on their identity and peeling back those layers of everything that we've been told, to be able to, like, stand in our identity and be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but this is what I want to do for myself. And I think if you know your values, if you know your identity, and you're really clear on that, then all the decisions you make, you can be true to yourself while also doing a lot of the things that we wanted to do and achieve our goals.
Yeah, and it's just, I think for me personally, it just takes a lot of self reflection. Like, I do a lot of self reflection, and during that self reflection, it's just being aware of how you feel. Because potentially you may be like, oh, yes, I've achieved this thing, that it could be something that other people are wanting you to achieve. And yeah, you do feel good, but thinking deeper into that, is this truly making you feel good, or is it just you feel good because you've achieved something that someone else or social people expect you to achieve, and just understanding that.
Yeah, I think your emotions is a key indicator of whether you are true to yourself, because your emotions are the messengers. They tell you what we like, if something is wrong, if something is triggering something in us, or if we're doing something that isn't right for us. Your emotions tell you all that. But we've learned to, like, push aside our emotions because it's like a sign of weakness, or we just want to ignore it because we need to get going with our goals and our to-do lists, that we don't listen to ourselves. And yeah, being true to yourself is really important, and your emotions really tell you whether that's right for you or not.
Yeah, and also understanding what you're feeling too. I think that's also another layer of self
Mm.
awareness, because sometimes you may feel one way, but just thinking deeper into it and just understanding what that feeling exactly is yeah, a whole new level of understanding yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I think the self reflection part is probably the hardest component out of it all, because it's just hard to sit alone and just think about who you are. What do I need to do? What am I doing right now? I think it's just sitting in silence sometimes it's difficult. Like, from my perspective, if I were to sit there, I'd be like, oh shit, how does my mind think? I'm thinking about so many other things. I need to just slow down and just chill out and think what I need to do. Am I doing this right? Stuff all the other people. It's all about me. I think sometimes for me, it's kind of hard to do that.
Yeah, you gotta be selfish sometimes and think about yourself. Put yourself first, actually, not think
Yeah.
about yourself first.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like, knowing how you're feeling is really hard. We avoid doing that. We don't like sitting quietly by ourselves, just sitting with our discomfort, and we want to avoid all that. It's easier just to keep moving and just move on. I can just think about work instead of how I'm actually feeling. But taking that time, like using journal prompts, I find has been really helpful for me. Just having a question instead of, like, thinking about everything in the day, but thinking about, like, a focused question. That's really helpful for me to narrow down the focus of what I'm actually wanting to reflect on.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good.
Yeah, that's good.
So another question that we wanted to ask is, what are some prompts or some ways that you could help advise in terms of finding your purpose if you really truly just don't know, have no direction, don't know what to do, what are some like starter cues that you would do?
Yeah. As a life coach, I can only guide you, but I don't know the answers for you, for every individual person. There's no step-by-step instruction, and it looks so different for everyone. Their interests are so different. But the first thing I would say is what we just talked about, like having some quiet time to just reflect and to sit with all those emotions, because we want to push them away, but as I just said, they're our messengers that are trying to communicate something with us. So if you're not sure what you want to do and you'd have no like sense of direction right now, feeling unsure about everything, then just sit down, journal, meditate, do some breathing, whatever helps you to think about this. And then the next thing is what we also talked about, which is just experiment, because there's nothing better than you trying things out, even if it's just a hobby. But it allows you to trust your instincts, trust your wisdom that you have, because we all have the answers within us. But we've been so conditioned to follow everybody else's versions of success or follow what everybody else is doing and copy that. So we don't listen to ourselves. So if we just experiment, we follow our curiosity, we all have an inner wisdom that we need to cultivate. And for me, if I didn't follow my curiosity of life coaching, which I didn't even know was a thing back then, I wouldn't have gone down the rabbit hole, and then I wouldn't be here now on your podcast.
Yeah.
So experiment with things. Doesn't mean you have to spend money on it. It just means that you could do it as a hobby. You could just learn the skills of that, because maybe the job itself isn't what you're looking for, but it's like the feeling that you get from doing that. And then the last thing is to allow some space. So what I see a lot from other people and my coaching clients is that our schedules are so jam-packed that we don't even have time to just have fun for the sake of having fun. Like, let a hobby be a hobby without making money on it or without sharing with the world. It's just having that space to be spontaneous. That's when you are most creative and you kind of like think on your feet and you're able to just enjoy the moment because you don't know what's coming up. Because a problem that I have is over planning and trying to plan everything out, that I don't allow myself to test the boundaries of being spontaneous. So then once you figure out, okay, I've reflected on myself and the day, and I really enjoyed this part, you can experiment on that and try things out, and then allow yourself some time and space to actually do it.
Yeah, over planning is such a big thing because if you have everything structured, you have all these expectations about what you've already planned, and if things don't go your way, something didn't work out, your disappointment is so much bigger because you didn't allow room for errors or change of plans or anything. Like something as simple as even planning like a holiday. If you're going to plan every hour of every single day and then you missed the bus and you couldn't get to the destination of where you
Oh,
want
I
to
hate
go.
that.
Yeah. Like we could actually just laugh it off and be like, oh, we were so stupid. We didn't pack in time and didn't, make it to the bus, but let's try this instead or something. And it could actually lead to you finding something or discovering something that you didn't even expect to discover. And I think that discovery part of the thing, what you were saying before, is really important, being spontaneous. And that's usually where you find, the most fun and being yourself as well.
It's like living in the moment too.
Yeah, living in the moment.
That's what builds that experience.
And that's why my program's called Living with Intention, because
we love it.
we sometimes just need that end goal or that feeling of an end goal without planning all the little steps in between. So the SMART goals are really good when you are when you have that very clear sense of direction. But when you don't, it's just that feeling.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been cultivating that feeling of spontaneity in myself, being flexible, because I'm an overplanner. I've been really working on that so that I can just live in the moment and do and be who I truly am, because I don't know what to expect. And that's why I don't ever have like never-ending to-do lists anymore. I've shortened it down to just a few key elements of my goals. And I don't fill up every waking minute of my day, because I want to allow time to just, go out to the garden, or a friend calls me up and I'm like, yep, I'm free. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's when you learn so much, when you're able just to be yourself and experience things as a child, basically, who's just seeing things for the first time. Because when we overplan everything, we know how it's going to go.
Yeah, I go by this thing where people say the higher the expectations that you have, the more disappointment that you have. There's actually a Chinese phrase for it, but I won't say it in
Say it in
Chinese.
Cantonese.
No, yeah. But also with this though, in terms of wanting to know, do we know what we want in life and things like that, there are some people who also settle for mediocre. So we just wanted to discuss like why do you think some people settle for just, just this is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's really ironic how our parents have taught us to work really hard and achieve more and earn more money and get a like respectable job and all that. But at the same time, we're also taught to be humble,
Yeah.
to not be too greedy, to be too selfish. So there's this contradiction between the two. And this is where we get really confused and really conflicted because, on one hand, we want to do more and we want to do things that are going to make us happy. But at the same time, what are people going to think of us if we strive for something bigger or if we step out of the box? What are people going to say about us? So mediocre is something that is just like it's just right in the middle, right? It's
Yeah.
easier. No one's going to judge you and you don't have to go through trying something and failing at it.
Yeah.
So this was something that I did for most of my life, just settling for something, settling in my career. And it's something that a lot of us have thought about, like wanting to do something else. But then I've got a good job. I know the people, I'm getting paid decent money. Why should I change? And the only thing I can say about that is from my own experience, I've gone through so much self-doubt going through that, so conflicted between the same problem. Should I change or should I just stay? And what I felt during that time was, but teaching is so comfortable. It's so stable. I have money coming in every fortnight. It's so secure for me to stay there. And I think that's why a lot of people just settle for mediocre. That's one of the survival beliefs that I talked about in my most recent podcast episode as well, where we just settle because out of fear that we don't want to try something else, we follow the easier path because we don't want to make it hard on ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's also partial bit of limiting beliefs too, because it's like, oh, I'll never get that, or I'll never be there, or
Yeah.
I'll never be able to achieve that. And I think once you kind of look past that, like at this point in time, maybe you're not able to achieve it, but if you work and you really want to work towards this goal, you'll strive for it and you'll make things happen. And I think it's just understanding that and just removing that limiting belief, it will take you so much further as well. And saying that sometimes people are okay to settle for, this will do kind of thing, and that's totally okay too. And I think it's just knowing what you want and what you're happy to settle on as well is really important.
I think a lot of the times when people have those limiting beliefs, they don't want to dive into that. They don't want to question like all these doubts they have because I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, whatever that is. And it's that healing journey that we all have to go through if we want to strive for something more, something different, something that we weren't capable of before. Like for myself, if I think about myself back then, I was this quiet, shy kid. And if I imagine myself now as that person on Instagram, I'll be like, what? Who would have thought that I was posting? I would be posting on Instagram now. And I've gone through my own journey with that as well. Because I was like, how am I going to do coaching if I can't even talk to people, if I can't even show up? How could people trust me to show up for them if I can't do it for myself? So going through that own healing journey for myself has been a major stepping stone for me to get where I am right now.
Yeah, I have a quite similar story, especially high school, like uni, all that. I hate public speaking, anything. There was like a uni assignment where you had to sit in front of the computer, record yourself, and talk about this topic, which was like an essay or something like that. And I was like, I actually looked back. I saw this like maybe 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh my God, this is disgusting. It's like, what am I doing? My eyes are like shifting everywhere. I was like fidgeting and like moving. And I was like, oh my God. And then to think like if I was that person looking at where I am today, like doing this podcast with you and talking to people, and I'm also now trying to go out and network with people too. Me back then, I would be like, no, I can't do this. I am not going to go out and talk to people. And to see where I am now, it's like just removing that limiting belief and knowing that you can actually be that person, as much as like if you have a goal to work towards, it will bring you there.
Adding to that, it's sometimes it's just putting yourself out there and just putting yourself in that uncomfortable position. Because I was exactly that when I was a kid, or even in my early 20s, just public speaking or just being around new people, socializing. It was such a struggle for me. And it was until you just, like for me, at one point, it was just a requirement for my job where I just had to put myself out there, meet new people, and just talk to them, get to know them. That's when you really feel like at first you're scared shitless. After that, it's just, oh, wow, okay, this is not that bad. It's just talking to people. And that just comes over practice and just putting yourself out there, right? So it's a great feeling once you get used to it. It's just like, geez, all this energy is just lifted off. You feel positive. You're just like, hell yeah, I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually love networking.
If we shift the intention and shift the purpose to the other person and don't think about yourself, it's not like I'm not gaining anything from this conversation. I'm here to help you, and I'm here to help bring these conversations to a greater audience. Allows us to do the scary things, right? Because for myself, if I'm posting on Instagram for myself, I'm just watching myself on the camera. I'll be like, oh, cringe.
Yeah.
But no, I'm here to help people. I'm here to serve other people and bring awareness to some of these topics that I'm talking about, that I'm like, I don't care what I look like. Like, I don't even use makeup. Very simple. Like, I'm here just as myself, that I don't care about that. I'm here for the people I'm serving. And that kind of, reduces my ego a little bit. It's like, it's not about me.
And the purpose and the message that you're bringing across too.
Yeah, and that was a big lesson for me to learn, because I've always thought about myself, like how awkward I am talking to people, or like how red my face goes.
Natural blush.
Yeah, natural blush. And that has been a lesson that I've been learning over the years, to be able to get where I am now, like talking on Instagram, doing like IG lives, recording podcast videos. Like just the last episode was the first solo episode that I recorded.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which was
That's
a big
really
step
good.
for me. I'm like, I'm talking to myself. Why would I want to record that? But I went for it anyway. And some people appreciate that, having the courage to do something to serve other people.
Yeah, and even like when other people are watching you and doing that, you become an inspiration, because they know maybe you come from a place where you're not comfortable with doing that, but you took the courage to do that. And then people will be like, okay, maybe I can do it too. So it's really good that you gave that a go and did that, and you did it really well too.
Oh, did you watch it?
I listened to some of it, and like you could not even tell that you were worried or like self-conscious. Like it was completely fine.
Don't worry, I edited it out.
It's all in the editing.
That's a good thing about having your own podcast. You have control over what you want to leave in or edit out.
Yeah.
But when I listen back to my episodes, it's not as awkward as
It really
I
isn't.
don't feel as bad about it as I used to.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like editing for hours before the first episode, which wasn't even that long, I think. I was editing like every little detail. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good, edit that out. And now I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, we were the same. We had like an intro and we edited that like a few thousand times. And now like when we edit, there might be one and they were like, oh, whatever, I'll leave it. Don't care. But with that though, having a goal in mind, which is really awesome, and working towards that, wanting to achieve something, sometimes that means that you may have to work extra hard towards that goal or put in some extra time. So how do you balance actually slowing down but also working towards your goal while you may have to put some time into it?
Yeah. So what I can say is that you definitely can slow down, because right now I've slowed down a lot. I used to be working like 60 hours a week.
Damn.
And I know, teachers, man. But I was also tutoring at the time as well. So I put in a lot of extra work to become an expert in teaching, which didn't really work out so well, because I don't think I was ever an expert. You're always growing, that you never reach the level that you want to be at. But I used to work so much. I used to put a big emphasis on my career. And I still do, but I think I have different intentions now. And my goal is not to become the best teacher or become the best anything, but more of just like making impact. So slowing down is something I've definitely worked on a lot. And there's this phrase that I love to use, which is a lot of coaches like to use as well, which is slow down to speed up. Because if we keep speeding up and going faster and doing everything we need to do at lightning speed, then you might be like super far from where you actually want to be, because by the time you check back, you're like this far away.
Yeah.
So there's this analogy that I like to use as well, which is about this jar. And what people tend to do is fill this jar up with sand. So all these little things that we do every single day, like scrolling on our phones or like thinking about our diet and all those little things that are necessary, but we spend way too much time on the little things. And then we fill it up with pebbles. And then the big rocks, the important stuff in our life, they can't fit. So all the big rocks are like, our career, our health, time with our family. And so if we switch that around and we do all the important things first, or all the big rocks get filled in first, and then you add the pebbles in, and then the last thing is you sprinkle in some sand, and that can kind of fill in some of the gaps that we have in our jar. So if we spend our time that way and you slow down and do the big things first, then you can really slow down and focus your time and energy on the important stuff. And then you'll feel more fulfilled. You'll have more purpose, more motivation to do things rather than spending all your time on the little things that don't really matter, that aren't really that important. Like, do I have to make my bed every day? No.
Yeah.
But we have way too many dreams and too many goals that simplifying it down to like that analogy is really helpful to make an impact right now on the big stuff.
I think that's really
Yeah,
good.
that's
And
good.
I think what you said earlier in the episode was really good too. Is just having your priorities. Like you have a goal that you want to work towards, but have those priorities and then also have your non-negotiables in place. So if we're talking about career, the priorities that you want to set in place, say your top 3 priorities for your career, but your non-negotiables are making sure you have time to go to the gym or making sure you have quiet time with your partner, like watch 1 hour of TV dramas or something like that, having dinner together, like having those, I think it just allows you to be able to achieve that without burning out, even though you may have to spend a little bit more time or effort at that current point in time, but having those in place and then also knowing yourself so that you don't burn out.
Yeah, it's just like knowing when your battery's low and you need to just stop and recharge it. It's important that you have things set in place where you go, okay, I'm actually working too hard. I just need to stop, slow down, and just take my battery out, recharge my AA battery, and we're all good to go.
That's double A, that's it.
Yeah. I want those big fat rectangles. No, but it's even what you said, Fana. Like you went on your honeymoon, you had your wedding, that was your time off, you went on a holiday, now you come back and you're so ready to go back into life coaching and teaching. And that's just the biggest example of you having a clear goal of what you want, but you allowed yourself to have time, take that time off, and now you're even more rejuvenated and you're just ready to go.
Juiced up to go.
Yes. That's what you need to do. Like you need to take yourself away so you can really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have so many goals that we can't slow down because I've got to move on to the next goal and the next goal.
Yeah.
And so me having that space and time away from coaching, it really allowed me the chance to really like think about what I wanted to achieve with my life coaching and kind of do a slight pivot as well, because I thought I had a really good idea of what I wanted to do. And then I kind of changed my messaging a little bit, changed my purpose of what I wanted to do this year with my coaching. And so, yeah, slowing down is something that I preach as well.
And it helps you to recalibrate, which is essentially what you were saying that you did, because you may have all these goals listed, like a long list, and you're like, I want to do this, this, and this. I want to hit this milestone. But once you go away, you come back and you're like, okay, maybe these goals aren't even that important. It's these 2 that I really want to work towards. And it helps you do that.
Yeah, definitely.
On the topic of achievement, was there something that you achieved that you actually didn't really want to do?
I honestly can't think of anything.
Cool. End of the
Damn.
episode. Goodbye.
Maybe I've blocked it out.
No.
But I honestly think I don't have any regrets because, yeah, as cheesy as that sounds, I think everything that I've experienced, whether I've cringed at that moment or I beat myself up over it afterwards, it has taught me something, and it's allowed me to be the person that I am today. And all the lessons or the experiences that I've had, being the quiet good girl, always wanting to do well in school and please my parents. I've gone through uni and got my teaching degree and getting my first full-time job, like straight out of uni. Like all those things I don't really regret, because at that point in time I wanted that.
Yeah.
Whether that was me or other people, but I ultimately made that choice myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I really believe in like divine timing and how everything unfolds the way it's supposed to.
I do too.
Damn. Confucius.
So we've come to a little wrap up. We did sprinkle a little bit of this across the whole episode, but it's just summarizing the top 3 tips that you'd share in terms of finding your direction.
Yeah, and this is just from my own experience and what I've coached my clients going through this as well, is that the first is to invest in yourself, whether that's in your time and sitting with your thoughts, as we've talked about before, or if you're able to financially, then support yourself by investing in like a coach or a therapist, or even just like talk to your friends about it. So for myself, I personally have a coach, and I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have one. So this is not a secret, but I humbly invite your listeners to join Living with Intention, which is my personalized coaching program, because a lot of my clients come to me feeling lost, feeling stuck in life, like not knowing what to do next, or not even sure what they want to do at all. And so having a coach just talk you through it, even just like an hour, or just being in that space where it's dedicated to you, it's really helpful. So yeah, the first thing I would say is invest in yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you. The next is to reduce your work hours. Have some time to think, have some time to enjoy yourself, have fun for the sake of having fun without any other purpose behind it. Be spontaneous, be flexible. And the last is to surround yourself with people who fully support you, who will give you that motivation and inspiration, and cheer you on. Because I've been blessed with some of those people, especially through my coaching, who respond to my stories, like you guys, respond to my content. And that's the community that we're all searching for, not the people who are super real with you. Sometimes we want that dreamer aspect of it as well, instead of people just like, okay, that's cool, but how are you going to do that? It's like, you don't have to know the how, not yet, you'll figure it out. Yeah, if you're lost and feeling like you need some sense of direction, then yeah, I think those 3 points are my best tips.
I think you
Yeah.
summed it up really well.
Yeah, they're heavy hitters. Definitely heavy hitters.
I mean, all of this takes so much time, a lot of effort, but it's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, and like it's also understanding that change isn't going to happen overnight. It's just something that you got to progressively work towards and work, spending time on it. And over time, when you look back, you realize you've already started changing or have a different perspective in life.
Yeah, and when you invest that time in yourself and you're able to realize that, it's always like when you look back, you're like, whoa, I've done so much.
Damn.
Yeah, and with that, all good things must come to an end. We've hit the end of our episode and we've had such a good conversation. I think we've learnt a lot from you as well.
It's just experience.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for all the listeners out there, she does have courses on her website too, so make sure you check that out. And like just anything in terms of finding direction, finding your purpose, living with intention. And Van Ann, I'll let you do some plugging to share with our listeners where they can find you and some of your courses.
Thank you so much. So I have my website. You'll find everything on kindofheart.com, and it will have my courses, my programs, information about me, and I have my own podcast as well, which I'd love to have you guys on next.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's called Slow Down Time, and you can find that everywhere where you listen to podcasts. And my Instagram is where I mainly do my chatting to my community, and that's @_kindofheart. So yeah, I'd love to invite you guys to join me on there if this topic or these topics that we've talked about today resonates with you.
Well, Van Arn, it's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot from you. I'm sure we have, both of us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. 100%. And for the listeners, thank you for tuning in, and on to the next one.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye. Thank you.